The best way to build modern user interfaces across all Apple platforms is with SwiftUI. SwiftUI lets you write better apps with less code, so you can focus on what's unique to your app. It also maximizes your ability to reuse interface code. The Healthy Habits app Streaks by Crunchy Bagel is a great example. They first started using SwiftUI when building widgets for iOS. Then they shared that code with their watchOS app and augmented it with beautiful animations. And now they've incorporated the same code back into their original iOS app. Incremental adoption enabled them to share UI code at their own pace and see benefits from SwiftUI in their existing apps. SwiftUI is also incredibly capable, helping to power sophisticated interfaces in apps like the new Logic Pro and Final Cut Pro for iPad. Adopting SwiftUI in your apps prepares you to build the next generation of user interfaces. And what you can build with SwiftUI continues to expand. As always, its new capabilities in this year's releases focus on areas of high impact and top developer requests, like new support for pie charts and selection in Swift Charts, a brand new inspector API, expanded MapKit support, including overlays, lookaround, and more. These improvements cover a wide range of functionality, but many of them are focused on improving animations. This is a key area because well-designed animations make your interface easy to use. They can provide feedback so your users know that something is happening, or they can confirm that a task has completed successfully. And that's why SwiftUI has had advanced features like reversible, interruptible, and cancelable animations from the beginning. This year, SwiftUI is taking animations even further. It starts with the way that they move. Animations are often triggered by a user's gesture, so now SwiftUI can automatically transfer the velocity of your gesture into your animation, providing a smooth transition. And animations now default to a spring-based motion that can be configured with just two simple parameters: duration and bounce. SwiftUI can also take advantage of new animated effects and SF symbols, bringing the iconography in your apps to life. Finally, when you need to build multi-part animations, SwiftUI has a new API called Animation Phase that helps you build sophisticated animations with just a few lines of code. I've created a sample app to illustrate new APIs like Animation Phase, inspired by the beautiful landscape of Apple Park. It provides a calming experience where users can create outdoor spaces and provide food and drink for visiting birds. To make sure that I never miss a new bird, I've added a reminder to the top of the list. Let's switch over to a preview focused on just that view. I really want to make this SF symbol stand out by adding some animation. First, I'll add an enum to define the different states in a custom animation. Next, I'll wrap my view in a phase animator. This is a new view that automatically animates between a set of states. And finally, I'll scale and rotate the icon in the dot-highlighted animation phase. This is looking good, but I think it would look even better if the background animated along with the icon. So I'll add a couple more modifiers. Now, for even more advanced animations, this year SwiftUI adds full support for keyframing. This powerful API lets me animate anything, including the properties of the new SwiftUI-based MapKit API. Keyframes let you define the values of multiple properties at specific times within an animation, and then let SwiftUI interpolate the intermediate values. Here, I've used keyframes to animate the map camera visiting different landmarks in Cupertino. Because keyframes let you define the motion for different properties, we're able to independently animate the pitch, heading, and position of the camera to achieve this smooth, continuous motion across Cupertino and over to Apple Park. Crafting the feel of your app using animations in SwiftUI has never been easier. Next, let's talk about data flow. When building an app with SwiftUI, you have a few choices to bring data into your views. SwiftUI offers a set of property wrappers for managing data local to your view and for referencing data owned elsewhere. This year, data flow is getting simpler, letting you focus on just state and environment. Now, you may have written code like this when exposing your model to SwiftUI, conforming to observable object, and adding the published property wrapper to each property. Swift's new macro support makes this much simpler, with a new observable macro taking its place. Just annotate a class with @observable, and you're done. All publicly visible properties are published automatically. And when using an observable in your SwiftUI views, there's no need to use a property wrapper to trigger view updates. You just reference your variables directly. You'll write less code and get fast and correct behavior by default. Observable lets SwiftUI track access at a per-field level, so your view's body is only reevaluated when the specific properties used by your view change. If you modify a field not used by your view, no invalidation will happen at all. So now, when you connect your model to your views, just like with the rest of SwiftUI, the most natural code to write is also the correct code to write. SwiftUI was the start of a new generation of frameworks designed for Swift. But the benefits of a Swift native framework don't stop with your UI code. Core Data has long provided tools for data management, but its design was born of the era of Objective-C, and it doesn't take full advantage of everything that Swift has to offer. Many of you have been asking for a Swift native solution to data management, designed with first-class support for all of Swift's features. Let me introduce you to Swift Data. Swift Data is a framework for data modeling and management. It's built on top of Core Data's proven persistence layer, but with an API completely redesigned and reimagined for Swift. Like SwiftUI, it focuses entirely on code, with no external file formats. Instead, it uses Swift's new macro system to offer a streamlined API. If you were defining a model in Swift, you might write code like this, using regular Swift types. To manage this with Core Data, you'd then need to redefine the same model using the model editor built into Xcode. But with Swift Data, you just annotate your class with the @model macro. This single line of code packs a lot of functionality, like automatically enabling persistence, iCloud synchronization, undo and redo, and more. You can then refine these automatic behaviors by annotating properties with additional attributes, like indicating the value must be unique across all instances. And Swift Data uses the Codable protocol to understand structs and enums, so you can model your data with the tools that you already know. These types are fully modeled in the underlying data store, enabling you to perform fast and efficient queries, even on complex structured data. And of course, it's simple to integrate Swift Data with SwiftUI. Now, we started to build our demo app using the new observable macro to drive SwiftUI view updates. So my interface updates as I see new birds, but my edits aren't saved across runs. By importing Swift Data, I'll be able to add support for persistence really easily. I'll just replace the two observable macros on my existing classes with Swift Data's model macro, and my model's ready. At the root of my app, I'll add a modifier to set up the Swift Data container. And when I create a new backyard, I'll insert it into the model context so that it gets persisted. And finally, I'll hook up my backyard list view to the persisted data. That's really easy to do with the new @query property wrapper. Because we're now loading saved data, I can remove the default sample data that I used when I was prototyping. Before we test it out, let's also update a widget that I've been working on. I'll just set up the container and query the same way. With the app's shared container enabled, Swift Data automatically makes my data directly accessible by the widget using the same API. Backyards are now persisted by Swift Data and delivered to the view by @query. Before we started, I filled the database with some initial data, so you can already see some bird visitors. And if I add a new backyard object, when I return to the list, it will appear with no additional work. And Swift Data provides more than just persistence, including things like support for undo and redo, which just works automatically. And as you can see, my widget is already showing the backyard that we just created. And that's a look at how easy it is to save and restore data using Swift Data. SwiftUI and Swift Data work hand in hand to help you build engaging and powerful apps. They form a foundation of a new approach to development enabled by Swift that helps you spend less time on boilerplate and more time building your ideas. Next, Jonathan is going to show you how to apply these technologies to elevate your app in new ways across the system.
I'm really excited to tell you about 4 new app experiences. With Widget Kit, you can surface your content in many places across the system. With App Intents, your app's functionality is integrated into the system even more seamlessly. With TipKit, you can surface beautiful tips directly in your app. And with AirDrop, you can make it even more convenient for your users to share content with those nearby. Let's start with Widget Kit. Widgets elevate important information from your apps, making your app experience more glanceable and available to your users as they go about their day. Widgets started on the home screen, but now they're in many more places to bring your experiences to users right where and when they need them. And this year, widgets are becoming even more powerful. Once you rebuild for iOS 17, with just a few simple changes, your existing widgets will look gorgeous in Standby on iPhone. They'll appear scaled up and drawn out to the edges, with the backgrounds removed so they look stunning side by side. They'll also be available on the lock screen on iPad, again drawn to their edges and with their backgrounds removed. Here, they'll have a uniform visual appearance so they blend perfectly with the lock screen. And on macOS Sonoma, they'll be available on the desktop in full color and then recede into the background when a window has focus. And you can now make your widgets more useful with new support for interactivity. Simple actions that can be accomplished with a tap, like checking off a reminder, can now be handled directly from your widget. All of these new widget updates were enabled by their SwiftUI-based architecture. Your widget's code is run asynchronously to generate content, and the SwiftUI views it builds are then saved to an archive. Later, when the widget needs to be drawn, the archive can be loaded, rendered in the background, and then displayed as part of the system UI. When a user taps a button, its extension is run again to handle the action and update the UI. This architecture also enables iPhone widgets to be seamlessly displayed on your Mac. Thanks to the magic of continuity, the widget archive can be sent across the network to your Mac, and user interactions can be sent back to be handled on iPhone. Getting your existing widgets ready couldn't be easier. Just identify your widget's background and update its padding to use the default provided by Widget Kit. SwiftUI stack-based layouts let the system adapt your widget's color and spacing based on context. Interactivity is also easy to adopt by adding SwiftUI buttons or toggles to your widget. New support for triggering an app intent from these controls launches your extension on demand. When your widget's content updates, the system triggers a transition animation that works just like a magic move in Keynote. Moved elements slide to their new locations, and added or removed elements fade and blur softly in and out. You can use standard SwiftUI transition APIs to further customize and get exactly the effects you want. Let's take a look at how easy it is to include these new features in an existing widget. Our sample app has a widget that tracks notable events in our backyard. The first thing I need to do is identify its background. Here's our widget view, and we can see our background is right here in the Z stack. All I need to do is move it into the new container background view modifier. And starting in iOS 17, widget padding is provided for me, so I'll go ahead and remove the padding I was adding before. Now, thanks to Swift macros, I can see my entire widget timeline directly in Xcode previews. Here at the bottom of the preview canvas are all of my timeline entries, and clicking through them shows how my widget will animate when it updates. This transition is great, but let's see if we can do something that feels a bit more like a bird arriving. Just like in my app, I can make use of standard SwiftUI transitions. Here in the editor, I'll add a transition modifier to my bird view. Let's try a leading edge push. That looks great. The updated preview canvas also makes it easy to see how my widget looks in different contexts, like the new iPad lock screen or Standby on iPhone. Let's look at Standby. When the background is removed, I want my bird to stand out. And its feet are a bit lost here, so let's add a bird bath. SwiftUI provides a new showsWidget container background variable that lets me customize how my widget looks when the background is removed. Nice. Many of you have asked for the ability to interact with your app from your widget, and now you can. Let's add a button to refill my bird's water. Already defined an app intent for this action, so all I have to do is associate it with a button in my widget. Let's try it out in the simulator. And just like that, I've refilled my bird's water. And that's Widget Kit. It's never been easier to surface your content in so many places across the system. We're excited about all the ways you can use interactivity and animated transitions to enhance your widgets. Now, app intents are about more than just interactivity and widgets. They elevate your app's functionality across the system in Spotlight, Shortcuts, and Siri. Now, when you wrap your intent in an app shortcut, it will appear right next to your app icon in Spotlight results, with a richer, more interactive presentation. You just need to provide a few things. In your app shortcut, a short title and an image or symbol. And in your app's info plist, a background color that's complementary to your app icon. And your app shortcuts will be surfaced in the updated Shortcuts app, where users can set them up to run automatically, add them to their home screen, or use them to create their own shortcuts. Siri has gotten even better too. Users have more natural language flexibility to invoke a shortcut. With Widget Kit and app intents, users can access features of your app in whole new ways. Next, let's talk about feature discovery in your app. Every year, we developers spend time building features that we think users will love, but sometimes the users who would benefit most don't know the feature exists. A new framework called TipKit helps address this by intelligently educating users about the right features at the right time. TipKit includes templates to match what users are accustomed to seeing in system apps and are easily customizable to match the look and feel of your app. Power of TipKit is its turnkey nature. Simply customize a template and add targeting to educate users on functionality related to their current context. You can also manage the overall frequency to avoid showing tips users have already seen, even if they saw them on another device. Lastly, we have a fun new way to help users share content from your app with AirDrop. On iOS 17, your users can skip the share sheet and quickly send content to another device nearby. You can use Share Link in SwiftUI or adopt Activity Items configuration on your app's UI Kit view controller. And system-provided view controllers like Share Sheet and Quick Look already work by default. Widget Kit, App Intents, TipKit, and AirDrop will help you build experiences that make your app's content available to your users in the right place and at the right time. We're looking forward to seeing how you'll use these to take your apps even further.